This is a birder's nightmare situation. An incredibly rare bird is found near you, but the report says that it is at an inaccessible location. What do you do? I'm Doug Hitchcox. My goal is to get the most people to see the most birds, and in this video I'm going to talk about the recent occurrence of a Willow Ptarmigan here in Maine, and how we managed to get access for birders to see this bird that was in a very inaccessible location. But spoiler alert, all that effort was actually in vain as the bird met an untimely death. Before we jump into this, I want to strongly recommend that you go watch my video on gatekeepers and birding for a little more background on these scenarios. In this case, I was one of the gatekeepers, but did manage to get people to go see the bird. And my hope is that this video gives a little more transparency, especially to the folks who didn't get to go see that bird, and can also act as a bit of help for folks that might find themselves in a similar situation. We should start with the bird, a Willow Ptarmigan. These are basically chickens of the Arctic tundra, sporting a stunning white plumage in the winter that blend into their snow-covered environment. They then molt into a darker brown and chestnut color come summer and the nesting season. This bird has a really interesting pattern of vagrancy and has occurred in Maine before. The Maine Bird Records Committee has only reviewed 2 past records, one in Midcoast and the other in Casco Bay, on an island off Portland. Some of the pending records are well documented, they just haven't been reviewed, like this Bailey Island record from 1977. Note how almost all of these occur in the spring, primarily in mid-May, with a couple in April. These are exactly the types of patterns I talk about looking for in my How to Find Rare Birds video. Interestingly, there is an outlier, one December report which perhaps unsurprisingly lacks documentation. Anyways, even looking outside of Maine at records in Massachusetts, Vermont, New York, the southernmost records in Ontario, and even the southern Quebec records, they all fall in the same time frame around mid-May. And this one we are going to discuss could actually be one of 2 or maybe even 3 records in Maine this spring. On May 9th, 2024, a Willow Ptarmigan was photographed by residents living on Cliff Island in Casco Bay. If that sounds familiar, this location is only about 2 miles from that record I mentioned back in 2000. While the 2000 bird on Chebeague Island stayed for a couple weeks and even molted while there, this year's Cliff Island bird was only a one-day wonder. That's despite the effort of many birders to get out there and scour the island, though we did find the exact rock it was photographed on. I do think it is worth pointing out that we found a red fox hunting in the yard adjacent to where the ptarmigan was seen. Then, on May 24th, I was sent a report, basically a fourth-hand telling by the time it got to me, but of someone in Rockland who described a bird, quote, the size of a chicken, walking around on the side of the road. It was mostly white with some brown patches, which, yeah, sounds like another Willow Ptarmigan. And apparently local birders went out looking, but no one could find anything. And that gets us to the rare bird alert a few days later, on May 27th. A video of a Willow Ptarmigan sitting on the hood of a car in Small Point. Now this is the problem. Small Point is a very private community. Seriously, in Maine we don't have many gated communities, but Small Point is all private roads. They've got their own private beach, and if you don't live there, you really can't get in. So it seemed like this would be the end of that story. But that would be a pretty boring ending, so as luck would have it, a Maine birder and well-known artist, Michael Boardman, knew someone that lived in Small Point because he had helped do the Christmas bird counts there in past winters. And like finding ice cream in the vegetable drawer, we had an inn. From the one spot we were allowed to park in, Michael and I walked the road for 2 hours, getting our hopes up with every white piece of styrofoam and checking every car hood we could see. We expended just about every minute we had returning back to the car with our heads held low, and adding insult to injury, Michael's friend greeted our return with arms raised, yelling, "Congratulations!" And as we explained we hadn't seen the bird, he cut us off and said, "Well, you're about to. It's in my neighbor's yard." Funny that we had walked from his house all the way north along the road and then came back. And of course, the bird was seen in the only house south of his yard, the only one that we hadn't checked. Now, sorry for the language, but here's a little clip from when we first saw the bird.
Holy sh**. Oh my God.
I certainly never thought I'd see a ptarmigan in Maine, let alone sitting on a chaise lounge chair, but I guess that was a pretty well camouflaged spot for it. The bird was ridiculously tame, possibly having never seen people before, and that's not uncommon with galliforms, especially those that aren't hunted. but fortunately the bird appeared to be in good health. Amazingly, there was a turkey vulture in the area that dove on the ptarmigan multiple times, once flushing it down into the rocks. I doubt the vulture would have actually tried taking down the ptarmigan, but with how slow moving it was, maybe it thought it was just a ready meal. As we talked with the homeowner, explaining the bird's life cycle, past records in the area, and what an amazing occurrence it was, we brought up the option of getting more birders in to see it. It is pretty rare for landowners to say no to all access, and working with them to find when are okay times to visit, where people can park, and any of those details can usually help open doors. At this location, the biggest problems were how private the community was, but also the really limited access down to the end of the point. The roads are all dirt and single lane, and we only had one parking space available to us. So with all the instructions that we could gather, I emailed 10 people that I trusted to test this out. We needed small groups to go in, one vehicle at a time, see the bird, and leave before the next group could go in. On GroupMe, a group messaging app, I set up a group for those people to coordinate their comings and goings and share any positive or negative reports. There were some struggles in that the bird was missing for a few hours and not seen by the first couple groups. Then when it did return, we needed to get those original groups back in. Long story short, this worked. That first day, people behaved, they followed the rules, the homeowner was happy, and so I started sending out invites to the next batch of people. Now, I'll acknowledge a lack of equity in these scenarios where we have birds in areas with very limited access. In this case, I first reached out to local birders, those that I knew could make it down there in pretty short notice and on a weekday. I also knew this would be a really good bird for Ethan and Ingrid Whitaker, two Maine birders doing a lower 48 state big year this year and who just happened to be in Maine, so they got the early invite. And this is exactly where I expect complaints about elitism to arise in this idea of someone deciding who actually gets to see a rare bird. But I guess I can only share that my perspective, at least in this scenario, was trying to get a small group of people in that could basically test some of these protocols that we had set up and make sure that it was going to work before we could open it up to any other folks. And that plan was in motion. It seemed like things were working. Everything was going smoothly. We were getting people in, but unfortunately, disaster struck. The first text message I received the next morning, as the first group of our second round of birders were on their way down to Small Point, was from the homeowner notifying us that the ptarmigan didn't survive the night. She found its body in the woods, right near where she had seen it go to roost the previous evening, but now lifeless. The bird was decapitated, so clearly some predator had gotten to it. It is worth noting there were outdoor cats on that street, and as the number one anthropogenic cause of mortality in birds, it wouldn't be surprising, or unlikely, that one of them was the culprit. But there are plenty of other natural predators in that area. The carcass was salvage, and I'll note it was taken and transported by people with proper permits, now on its way to a museum where it will be prepared as a study skin and preserved in a collection. So that is the quick story of this Willow Ptarmigan at Small Point, and I think it makes for a good case study about how you can manage access at an otherwise really restricted location. So what do you think? Did we handle this correctly? Should anyone have even gone in to see it? The homeowner was okay with having visitors. I'll again acknowledge that there was no equitable way to get more people in earlier, and it does really make me wish that we had more time and could have seen how many folks could have gotten in following these rules we had set up. I do think that putting in this much effort is worth it, at least to get some people in to see a rare bird like this. But hey, of course that's my goal, just trying to get the most people to see the most birds. And you can help me with that by supporting this channel. Go watch or maybe re-watch that video on gatekeeping and birding. And of course, no two scenarios are going to be the same, but I hope a little case study like this can help you if you find yourself in a similar situation. And please make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thank you for watching.